What would it take to change a king's heart? To bend the will of a man who believed he was a god? This is a story of power, pride, and the clash between a pharaoh and the divine. In ancient Egypt, a land of towering pyramids and unmatched might, an entire nation suffered. For 400 years, the Israelites toiled in slavery, their cries rising under the lash of the whip, their hopes buried under endless piles of bricks. But those cries did not go unheard. They reached the heavens, and God had a plan. He chose a man named Moses, once a prince of Egypt, now a humble shepherd in the desert. God sent him back to the land he once called home with a simple, yet world-shaking command for the most powerful ruler on earth. "Let my people go." Pharaoh, a living deity in the eyes of his people, laughed. He refused. His heart hardened like stone. And so, the contest began. The first sign was a direct challenge to Egypt's life source, the mighty Nile River. In an instant, its waters turned to blood. The river that irrigated the fields, that provided food and drink, became a river of death. The fish died, the water stank, and the Egyptians had to dig for fresh water. It was a terrifying spectacle, a blow to the heart of their civilization. But Pharaoh's heart remained unmoved. So, a second plague was sent, frogs. Not just a few, but a croaking, slimy invasion. They swarmed out of the river and covered the land. They were in the palaces, in the kitchens, in the bedrooms, even in the kneading bowls. The sound was deafening, the presence inescapable. Pharaoh, desperate for relief, called for Moses. He promised to let the people go if the frogs would just disappear. Moses prayed, and the frogs died. But as soon as the plague was gone, Pharaoh's promise vanished with it. His heart hardened once more. Next, the dust of the land itself turned against them. Tiny, biting gnats rose from the ground, tormenting both man and beast. Egypt's own magicians, who had tried to replicate the first signs, were powerless. They told Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh wouldn't listen. His pride was a fortress. Then came the fourth plague, thick swarms of flies. But this time, something was different. The flies infested every Egyptian home, but they did not enter Goshen, the land where the Israelites lived. God was drawing a line, making a distinction between his people and their oppressors. The separation was clear. The message was undeniable, yet Pharaoh's stubbornness only grew. The plagues then escalated, striking at the very foundation of Egypt's economy. A deadly pestilence swept through the livestock, the horses, donkeys, camels, cattle. And sheep belonging to the Egyptians died in the fields. But once again, not a single animal belonging to the Israelites was harmed. Egypt's wealth was crumbling, its power being systematically dismantled. But Pharaoh would not yield. Following the laws of their animals, the people themselves were afflicted. Painful, festering boils broke out on the skin of every Egyptian, from the lowest servant to the highest court official. Even the magicians were so afflicted they couldn't stand before Moses. The pain was immense. A constant, physical reminder of their king's defiance. Still, Pharaoh's heart was like granite. The seventh plague was a terrifying display of nature's fury unleashed from the heavens. Thunder roared, lightning lit up the sky, and a storm of hail, mingled with fire, rained down upon Egypt. It was a storm of supernatural intensity, unlike anything ever seen in that land. It shattered trees, destroyed what little was left of the crops, and struck down anyone caught outside. For the first time, Pharaoh seemed to break. He summoned Moses and said, "I have sinned this time. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked." He begged for the storm to stop, but as soon as the sky cleared, his repentance evaporated. His heart, once again, was hardened. What could be left to destroy? The eighth plague provided the answer. A wind from the east brought an unimaginable swarm of locusts. They descended upon Egypt like a living carpet, devouring every green thing the hail had spared. The land that was once a vibrant green turned to a desolate brown. Every leaf, every blade of grass was gone. The land was stripped bare, a portrait of utter devastation. Hope itself seemed to have been eaten away. Then darkness. Not the darkness of a night or a cloudy day. This was a thick, heavy, tangible darkness that smothered the land for 3 days. It was a darkness that could be felt. No one could see anyone else or move from their place. Silence and fear gripped Egypt. But in the homes of the Israelites in Goshen, there was light. It was the ultimate symbol of spiritual blindness versus spiritual sight. Even after sitting in absolute blackness, Pharaoh tried to negotiate, to compromise. He would let the people go, but not their flocks. Moses refused. The standoff continued. Finally, the 10th and most terrible plague was announced. It was a judgment that would strike every single Egyptian family. God declared that at midnight, the firstborn son in every household would die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh on his throne to the firstborn of the slave in the dungeon. But God, in his mercy, provided a way of escape for his people. He instructed the Israelites to slaughter a lamb and mark the doorposts of their homes with its blood. This blood would be a sign. When the angel of death passed over the land, it would see the blood and pass over that house, sparing those inside. That night, as midnight fell, a great cry echoed throughout the land of Egypt. A cry of anguish and unspeakable loss. There was not a house without someone dead. The powerful, defiant nation was brought to its knees. Pharaoh's own son, his heir, was gone. The king who had resisted God at every turn, who had boasted of his own power, was utterly broken. He summoned Moses in the middle of the night and pleaded, "Go, leave my people. Take your flocks and herds and go, after for centuries of bondage. Freedom had finally come. It wasn't won by a human army or a violent rebellion. It was won by the mighty hand of God. The 10 plagues were not just random disasters. They were targeted judgments, each one a direct challenge to an Egyptian deity, proving that no throne, no power, no God can stand against the one true God. This story forces us to ask a difficult question. Why did Pharaoh refuse for so long, through so much suffering? Was it just pride? Fear of losing his workforce? Or was it the sheer inability to admit he was wrong? And as we look at his story, perhaps we should also look within. In what ways do we harden our own hearts? What signs do we ignore? What would it take for God to finally get our attention? What would it take to change your heart? Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of history and faith.